So we're here in Clovis, California, taking a look at some plumbing here at a home for sale. We're going to start in the master bath. So we took some static pictures. We're going to do a video as well. This sink is functional. There's two sinks in the master bath. One is on the exterior wall, which is this sink. So faucet works correctly. There's no dripping, no leaking out of either handle. Functionality is good. Underneath, to the best of our ability, the drain is functioning correctly. And looks like you get some new supply lines, new shut-off valves, nothing dripping there as well. Only thing we note on this sink is that the pop-up drain assembly, the lift rod does not reach the tailpiece, the lift lever back there. And so we recommend replacing this with a pop-up drain. Right now there's no functionality here, so when you pull this up to function the drain, it's not connected to anything. So same thing over on this sink on the interior wall. Duplicate, so same sink, same faucet, everything duplicated over to this side, and of course it doesn't reach. So pop-up drain is the easiest resolution. Otherwise you have to go back and find a longer rod to try and get it back to the back of the sink and get it tied in. So pop-up drains run about 25 bucks. Pfister makes them, Moen makes them, no big deal. Get that installed. Then of course the master shower, it's got the tub spout still installed. Looks like the old Kohler right temp. It functions correctly, no leaks out of the valve and no leaks at the shower head. The cover plate here is a little loose and can't tell you why, but anyways, everything functions good in the master shower. So we're going to go take a video in another room. Take a look at the hall bath. And so in here we've got installation here. So sink, faucet, everything works good. We already documented what we found in here. Faucet works good, no leaking. Functionality is good. You know, one finger on and off, so everything's working good. No leaking out of the cartridges. And the only thing we noted in here is that this is not caulked in. You know, I mean, you could leave it silicone down. You could caulk it in. It's kind of code that they get caulked in, but I think that's probably up to the homeowner, the owner of the building, and then of course the new buyer. We do see a little scale on this trap right here. It could mean that you've had some water leaking in the past, but we don't see any residual water at the bottom of the cabinet. All new supply lines, shut-off valves, and there's a conflict. Was this the one with the conflict? Mm-hmm. Okay, we took a static picture of this. We'll try and take a video without flipping the camera over. You can see up here that this lever assembly that goes back to that little piece of plumber's tape, it goes up. When you try and close the drain, there is a conflict between the hose, the braided hose supply line to the hot and cold up to the spout, and the top of that lever. So anyways, just need a little adjustment or kind of rework it. And so you notice that when you go and try and pull it up, it just stops right there because it's hitting in there. That's the only thing we see in there. Toilet works great. It's a Kohler. Flushes correctly, fills correctly, shuts off correctly. We don't like these old corrugated supply lines right there, all one piece, so we'd recommend replacing that, getting a brand new shutoff valve and supply line on there. It's not necessary, it's not leaking. The toilet appears to be stable and mounted correctly, which means you won't get any leaking out of here. We did flush these and noticed no water coming out of the bottom, so that's good. Over at the tub, couple of different things going on. This valve, we can't identify it. It's older, I would imagine, than when we first started plumbing in '87. I'd imagine home built in the '70s, '60s maybe. We've never seen this valve before. So, pops on when you turn it on, turn that on and then begin to function this. We get water dripping out of the back side. So you do have some dripping going on here. You probably wouldn't notice it while you're bathing or showering, but you do have something going on. The other one more noticeable is when you flip the shower on up at the hose. Water goes great, and then when you hit this button again, and when I mean divert to the shower, the tub's running and pulled this and it goes up to the shower head. When you push it back down, water sprays out of this hose right here and runs down the hose. And it doesn't spray outside of the shower, but the least you could do is replace the hose in the shower head. So that's all we would recommend in the hall bath. Go ahead and turn that light off. And that brings us back to living room. No way to test this gas valve here for the log glider to see if it's functional without air testing the entire home. So we're not going to do anything with that. Kitchen, got an ice maker box, and of course it's not dripping. It doesn't mean if you turn that thing on it might not develop a leak dripping out of the bottom of that green handle, but we don't know until you have a refrigerator here and hooked up. So, but from our point of view, it looks like it's working correctly. And the home, by the way, has some partial repiping, with PEX tubing. Kitchen faucet, everything works great. Okay, so kitchen faucet functional, no leaking out of the spray hose, no leaking out of the handle, drains correctly, disposal works correctly. Everything down here looks good, so you've got all brand new stub outs, hot PEX lines, the red, and then the blue PEX line shut off valves and all that. So everything looks good here. Garbage disposal is functional. And then of course the laundry room, the inside laundry room. Other way?
Other way.
Okay. Inside laundry room. Faucet works good in here. No leaks, nothing out of the cartridge, which would be here where the handle mounts the cartridge underneath there. So no dripping there. Underneath, you've got a garbage disposal hooked up and tied in with new shutoff valves. Supply lines are part of the faucet, but there's no way to there's nowhere to plug this in. There's no outlet behind your receptacle, so the cord's just hanging there. So you don't really need a disposal in there, but it's in there, so just leave it alone. I see some damage to the bottom of the cabinet from water, but we don't see anything existing right now that's dripping. So the trap looks good, drain looks good, so we're gonna leave that alone. This bathroom, did we get? This one functions correctly, so this lavatory sink, static fixtures, we've got that. And then down here, brand new shut-off valves. These are multi-turn. The other bathrooms were quarter-turn, which no big deal. And then of course, it looks like a newer trap. But no leaking down here, so you can always tell at the bottom of the cabinet if it's got some stains down there. That's where you get leaking. So everything looks, it's draining correctly. The faucet's working correctly. The pop up, the drain assembly's working correctly. So it's good in here. This toilet had a fill problem. So the fill valve, which sits over here on the left-hand side where that line is attached to, it's sticky, which means the water is supposed to take the float and push it to the top of the tank as the water rises and shut the mechanism off. It's not doing it. It's staying stuck down and overfilling. So this is just a quick fill valve replacement. That's all you need there. Everything works in here good. We checked this out and turned it, so you can see both these are flowing right now. And I would imagine there's a adjustment right here on the side where you can do one or the other or both. But you can see none of the hoses are leaking, which is good. So this one's functioning correctly, and this looks like a Moen posi temp. The other bathroom was a Kohler. This is a newer, so it's the posi temp from Moen. And so that's good, shuts down correctly, no dripping out of the shower head. So that's good. In the laundry room, washing machine, can't test that either. Looks like a new box with PEX valves on there, so quarter turn on, quarter turn off. Once you have a washing machine hooked up, you turn those valves on, and then you just monitor to make sure that there's no water that comes out right here between the red lever and the brass valve. If water comes out of there, then something's going on with that valve. Same thing with the cold. And typically when it's off, you may not see anything going on, but when you turn it on, you might see something. So there's no way to test that besides hook up a washer to it and then turn it on, and then you'll be able to tell right away. The gas is capped off, which is code. So you've got gas and you've got 220 for your dryer, so whichever one you want. And so that's capped off until the homeowner comes in, decides which one they'd like to use. If they want to use the gas, then of course they come in, put a valve on, and get the vent on, and you're done here. So is that the whole home? No?
In the garage.
Okay, take me. So we're going to go to the garage for the last. They've got a separate washing machine or washer dryer set up, and then also a laundry tray out in the garage. And we'll take a look at that. So you got some multiple, I want to say code violations because it's not strapped correctly and it's not insulated, and it's plastic tubing outside of the wall. So I'm not sure if the home inspection has been done already, but looks like iron pipe is still online right here because you can see iron pipe stubbed out, hot and cold. And then you go to a shark bite adapter down to shark bite tubing, which has been painted. And I'm not sure if you're supposed to paint it. I'll leave that up to you, but you can see underneath it's white. All shark bite connections over to a laundry faucet, hot and cold stub out. You can see the drain here. And if they're not going to utilize this, you'd want to cap this off permanently, because otherwise you get the trap in the wall will dry out, and then you get sewer gases out of here. Right now it's just a piece of paper. And then of course,
all of this right here, these valves, you've got quite a bit of, this one's not so bad, but you can see it's just drywall screws. That's probably just in drywall. Hot side is pretty bad. It's almost falling off right there. And so if you begin to use this, you're gonna lose this. It's gonna come off of the wall. The only thing I like about it is you've got about 4 foot of pipe, hot and cold, that comes down, then goes across. Nothing is strapped, which means all this stuff is free floating. And so that's not good. Not supposed to be touching. Not supposed to be bouncing off of each other. It should be insulated because it's outside of the wall. And so you might want to get that strapped or not. Totally up to you, but it's not correct. Same thing over here with the shutoff valves. Those are drop ear 90 shark bite. Light in here, please. Shark bite 90 right here. And so they're both coming out of the wall, and they're stubbed up for this laundry tray. So those should be anchored, fastened correctly. I mean, if you don't bump them, if you leave them alone, probably be okay, but they're not fastened correctly. Laundry tray works good. Faucet doesn't leak. Drain doesn't leak. You are out of code on the drain line, which again, probably don't have to address, but you're further than 30 inches on this arm over to the drain. And I'd imagine the reason is they moved it over there to try and create room for a washer and dryer, but you can only go 30 inches all the way over to the center of that P-trap. And so you're over that. You're about 3 feet. Not a big deal, but if it works, it works. But that's a code violation, and I'll let you deal with that. So that's the garage. I think the only thing left is the water heater up in the attic, and then we'll go around the outside, take a look at the water main and the hose bibs, make sure those are in good shape. So here in Clovis, California, still taking a look up in the attic, you got a G water heater. These guys are just, they're very specific water heaters, hard to troubleshoot and get warranty information on those unless they've been registered with a phone number and whatnot. So first thing, cover plate down here, you can see you can see the serial number, model number. You see it was manufactured June 2010. So still should be functional. It's strapped upper third and lower third, so that's code and that's good. The supply line is too long. Water heater's maximum supply line is 3 feet. This is a 4 foot supply line, so it's not code. It'll fire correctly, but that's just in the code book, so you can do with that what you want. It's got a new shutoff valve, or a newish shutoff valve. Also a second shutoff valve up here. I'm not sure why. I think that's fine with code because it's next to the appliance, and that's where you need your shutoff valve. Right now it is set to C very hot. Be mindful of that right there. If this is functioning correctly, which it probably is not due to the age of it. It's probably not heating as well as it should, but that's 160 degrees right there. B140A 130, and then of course at hot, the little triangle about 120 degrees is fine for most homes. So stream high, this is a very high risk of scalding right here. So we can't touch it because once we touch equipment, then we own it and we have to monitor it. So just be mindful of that. So we gave you the documentation here. It's right on the label. We'll write that out as well so you know what you've got. You've got the relief line tied in correctly right here and dropping down. We can't see where it goes, but it looks like they've made the effort to get out. We'll try and crawl over there real quick. You can see the relief line drops down the wall right there. And we'll go outside and verify the relief line and the pan drain. It does have a pan, which is required by code. We do see a line stubbed out. We'll go verify that where it terminates outside. Code conflict up here is going to be this vent. You have too much horizontal offset to vertical offset. Right in the code book, it tells you how much you can do. You're not within the parameters. It probably works fine. If you have a city of Clovis come out and take a look at this, they would red flag that. Second thing is you've got single wall pipe up here penetrating the roof, and you are closer than 6 inches from combustibles, which is this framing, this little 1x, the 2x rafter. Everything up in there, it needs to be 6 inches away. Normally you're going to use a dual wall B vent, which is rated for 1 inch clearance, and I can't really see that pipe, but it's only a single wall. I can see that it's not a dual wall B vent. So anyways, that could be a code conflict, but if no one's called you on it, then it's between you and the seller and the buyer and whatnot. Right here you can see a little split in the gasket, a little bit of corrosion happening around there. So you might want to consider putting in some new connectors. Just because that's where it starts to leak, and then it goes down the side of the water heater itself, and then hopefully gets into the pan and drains out. Little kink right here, not a big deal as long as it's not spraying. One valve on the cold side, you can see that up there. So that's good. Cold shut off, and there's not one recard on the hot side. Looks like this is where the repipe begins. You know, copper lines are coming up into the attic and then making a transition. I will say you've got maybe a small conflict with material. So these are dissimilar metals. You've got iron pipe coming out of brass, and then brass valve, and then iron pipe, and then here iron pipe. And where you have these connectors connecting to iron pipe, that's where you run into trouble. So just, you know, you might have a little bit of separation because you got the brass 90s. These are drop ear 90s screwed to the wall. So you have a little bit of separation from the copper and the iron pipe with the brass. But normally you just want to use all brass construction, brass nipple, brass T, all of it brass, because brass flows real well, doesn't break down, and it's not dissimilar. But I don't see any corrosion up here. So I mean, it looks like you're in good shape. I don't see any leaking on any of the solder joints or any of the screwed together joints. And this is all a type B PEX. It's a crimp style. Don't see the manufacturer name, but that's fine. A couple nails sticking here against the cold line, so that's not a good idea. But anyways, that's the documentation for the attic. We're gonna go take a look around the perimeter of the home and take a last video of shut-off valves, hose bibs, things like that. And then we'll wrap it up for the day. So still here in Clovis, California. We're taking it to the outside. This is the wall where the water heater is located up in the attic. Down low, you can see the relief line. It's a little close to stucco, so you might get a little bit, you know, if it ever did pop off, then you might get a little bit of, you know, water on the stucco, but it's off of the wall, you know, a little bit. Up here, you've got a pan drain, and that, you know, if the water heater, 120, 130 degree water, fills up and drains out, you could scald some with that. That's supposed to be down here within, I believe, 12 inches of the ground, 12 to probably 24. Have to check the code, but definitely not up 8 feet. And so it's a code violation, so I'll let you decide what you want to do with that. You should have been ran down the interior wall. I know it causes demo and whatnot, but it doesn't belong up there. And then over in this location, I don't know what you've got, but it looks like you've got a panned, probably either a condensate line, but I don't see any HVAC equipment on the roof, so I don't know. It might have been an old installation. I can't really tell you what that is. This is the back side of the garage wall, and we saw the line going up through, but we from the backyard. Let's go back here and see if we can see anything on the roof. So looking back here, you've got some panels. You've got oh, so it's old, so you can see it's just been demoed back, and I think what I see up there is a gas line with an old valve still on it. Yep. And not capped off. So by code, that's got, well, no, it's got a cap on the end of the valve. I can see it from here. So that's capped off. The relief line is still open, no cap on it. Stubbed through that flashing up there, and no unit. You can see there's the bucket is still there. It's been capped off with sheet metal. Looks like about, I don't know, 3 foot by 2 foot, something like that. So there used to be a unit there, and but not anymore. So that's fine. Those drain lines are good. And we're gonna walk back around this way so we can document what we did already. We took some static pictures. We didn't take static pictures of that there, but this hose bib is functional and not dripping. Normally you get dripping out of the packing net, so we operated that one. No leaking. Gas stub out looks like here, and capped off, so that's good. And no way to test the gas line unless you'd like us to pump up the entire line to check, and that of course is an additional fee. This faucet not leaking, so right there, that's packing net normally where it starts leaking, but no signs of dripping on this one. And then of course around the front right here, you've got one more sitting right here. And so that guy's not leaking either. Like I say, this packing net right here, when you turn it on, you can see right away if water starts squirting out of here, and it doesn't. So that's good. Sprinkler valves, this is not a plumbing area, so that'd be a landscape contractor. And then in the front, you got some exterior piping here. If you don't have a clean out, which I didn't look in the cabinet inside, we can go back in a minute. Did have a clean out? Okay, so we've got a clean out in there, so you're good on that 2-inch drain line going to the kitchen. Shut-off valve here does not, it's not dripping. We're not going to touch it and function and try and operate it because we don't want to be liable if this thing starts dripping. But right now it's dry as a bone, so you're in good shape with that. This one we've turned on because it's just a hose bib, and so that's working correctly. We're going to go out this side now. just to make sure you don't have any further plumbing on this side of the house. And that will that'll wrap it up, just to see if you've got any more hose bibs or whatnot. So just the gas meter on this side, looks like a 1-inch line, so you're good to go. And so I think that completes it. We're not going to take any more static pictures, but the video should pretty much explain everything. You know, the water heater is at a place where, you know, if it's working, leave it alone. If it's your home, keep an eye on it. If you're selling it or renting it, then still keep an eye on it, because it's the worst place to have a water heater is in the attic, and it's just painful to work on and painful to replace. So anyways, outside of that, this installation or this inspection is done.